Welcome to the Hyper Growth Zone podcast. This is your go-to resource for personal growth, mastering communication, and influencing and persuasion techniques that will help you unleash the full potential of yourself and others. Here is your host, Alex Morgan.
Welcome back to the 8th episode of the Hyper Growth Zone podcast. This is Alex Morgan, and I'm a master trainer of hypnosis and NLP. And I think this will be a really exciting episode for you because this one is all about how people think. So I think that you're going to resonate with either of these types of thinking, and maybe you've had one or the other throughout your life. And hopefully, if you don't have the more beneficial one already, by listening to this, it will show you that you can. So in this episode, with that being said, we explore the concept of abundant thinking and how it can lead to a more fulfilling life. So we're going to talk about the power of abundant thinking and how you can change how you think to really transform your life and your results. So we're going to also get into the difference between having a scarcity mindset and an abundant mindset. And we want to think about why is it important to shift our focus towards abundance. So let's jump into the difference between a scarcity mindset versus an abundant mindset. So what exactly is a scarcity mindset and how does it affect our thoughts and our behaviors? So a scarcity mindset is really a psychological phenomenon. So it's how people think, and it's how an individual is overly preoccupied with a perceived lack of resources. So things like what? Time and money. So if you're in sales or you have your own company, how many times has someone given the excuse, I don't have enough time, or I don't have enough money? So what's their thinking? They have a scarcity mindset. So this mindset, this scarcity mindset, it often leads to a narrow focus on immediate pressing needs. So if we're talking to someone and they say they don't have enough time or money, what are they really trying to do? They're giving an excuse that what they need right this second is going to be more important than future results. So people with a scarcity mindset, they're not thinking into the future. They're thinking right now. They don't think that they have many other choices. So this lack of choices, this lack of resources, this is consuming their bandwidth of how they think. It's taking up all of it. And so it's leaving little room for other thoughts or other actions. So let's think, how can this scarcity mindset really affect thoughts and behaviors? And it can do this in a few different ways. So for instance, let's say it can lead to constant worry. It can lead to anxiety. It can lead to stress. It can lead to burnout. And this can especially happen when a person feels that they are struggling to meet just their basic needs. So if someone's really working, they're out there, they think they're hustling, they're grinding, and they're barely making rent, car payment, all their bills, and they have no money or time for anything else. So another way that it can affect our thoughts and behaviors is it can result in poor decision making, as the person is more likely to make decisions based on what they need right now, as opposed to, let's say, long-term outcomes. So of course, what we need right now is most important. However, if we really want to evolve and grow and get to the hyper growth zone, at some point, we need to take some risk. If you remember, if we take a small risk and it can get huge results, and we can enter into the growth zone and the hyper growth zone. So if we have a scarcity mindset, then we're not going to get there. And if you need some more information on decision making, go back to the episode where I specifically talk about making decisions. So the scarcity mindset, let's say it's not always negative, because at one time it was a evolutionary advantage because people were, focusing on things like food. Essentially, that's what they needed right then and there. However, we're talking years and years and years ago. In today's society, so right now, this mindset, scarcity mindset, it can be much more harmful than helpful. And let me give you an example. So if we're talking about someone saying that they want to make money, someone who has an abundant mindset is going to be focusing on making money and all the good things that can happen to them. If you tell someone with a scarcity mindset that they should have a goal to make more money, sure, they could come up with a goal. That's great. It probably won't be as ambitious. However, as they are working towards that goal, they're probably not going to be so much focused on money. They're actually going to be focused the other way towards poverty, which is fine. There's some pain there that can get them motivated. However, after a certain amount of time, they're going to need to turn that motivation towards what they want, towards that money. If they're always going away from pain, away from poverty, that's where their thinking is. That's where that bandwidth in their mind is, which I mentioned earlier. And so eventually they're going to end up with poverty. So overcoming the scarcity mindset, it involves recognizing, and you have to challenge these thoughts. And you can challenge them by focusing more on abundance. And if you focus more on abundance, then that's what you're going to bring into your life. So if you have any scarcity thinking right now, that's completely okay. That's why you're actually listening to this, and that's how we found each other. That's why you're listening to the sound of my voice. So if you have any of that thinking, that's fine. The first thing you need to do is recognize it. And if those feelings are causing things like stress, exhaustion, anxiety, well then guess what? It's affecting the quality of your life, and maybe you need to seek help, whether that's in coaching or whatever it is, or doing hypnosis, to be more focused on abundance. However, just let this sink in a bit if you just now noticed this. So let's now talk about what is the abundant mindset and how it can actually help us view the world differently compared to the scarcity mindset. So the abundant mindset is more of a psychological phenomenon where an individual believes in the abundance of resources. So we talked about a lack earlier of time and money. Someone with the abundance mindset, they're going to think the opposite. There's an abundance of time. They have all the time because they're achieving freedom, financial freedom. They're going to think there's lots of money. They're going to think there's lots of opportunities, and there's potential everywhere. There's possibilities everywhere. So anytime in NLP we work with someone, anytime we do some sort of intervention with their unconscious mind, any sort of technique or method, we believe that the technique or method should increase choice. So the client, by doing this technique or method, maybe they're in the scarcity mindset, they now are going to believe that there's more choices. So if they thought they didn't have time or money before, what could they have now? Well, our unconscious mind, it thinks in metaphors. So that's going to be up to that specific client. And they're going to believe that there's more choices, there's more options. So in abundant mindset, this means that we believe in limitless potential. Not just everywhere in the world, but within ourselves. We think that we have limitless potential. And the thing about that is when we were born limitless. And then at some point, people taught us limitations. So people we grew up around, our family, friends, whoever that is, or at school. And now it's time to be limitless again. So we can adopt the abundant mindset at any time and really change our thinking. So this can significantly influence how we view ourselves and how we view other people. So if we actually think that the world is abundant, guess what? What are we going to see? We're going to see opportunities. We're going to see options. We're going to see possibilities, solutions. We'll see this in ourselves. We'll see this in other people. And so there are many different ways that we can change our perspective. And the abundant mindset, it allows us to see more options and choices in our lives. It also encourages us to explore different paths or different opportunities. So if we're doing something and we feel limited or stuck, if we have an abundant mindset, we're going to start to think in a different way. We're going to blow past the boundaries of that problem, of that being limited, and we're going to start to do something different. And people with an abundant mindset, They tend to have a more positive outlook on life. They believe in the potential of people and situations in their business, at work, with their family, and their relationships. So this can lead to increased joy, happiness, satisfaction, confidence, whatever it is. And people with an abundant mindset, they're actually choosing to learn and grow. They crave learning. They crave growth. They acknowledge that they don't know everything, and that's how they really, really grow, because someone who's conscious of the fact that they don't know what they don't know, this opens up new possibilities for continual learning and improvement. For example, I think the majority of people, I think I read in a book, it was actually 60% of people since high school haven't read a whole book. I mean, that was crazy to me because I read at least on average one book a week. So I know I don't know everything. However, the more I read, the more I learn, and the more possibilities and opportunities that I think of, the more solutions. So it could be as simple as that to change your mind. Reading, writing, relaxing, getting outside, taking action on the actual ideas that you have, or even having an attitude of gratitude. So if you can recognize what you have in your life, the abundance of resources and opportunities, and be thankful for what you have, guess what? This is going to open up even more things that you can be grateful for. So if there's anyone listening who actually wakes up in the morning or at any time of the day and is just thankful for what they have, it could be even the most basic things. And one of my trainers, one of my mentors, he said something like this one time, that isn't it amazing if you think about it? Isn't it just truly amazing that all of our utilities, all our bills, all the things that people had to invent and things before, we can just do with a click of a button. So electricity, a button. Water, a button. All those things are there for us. They're built for us. All the infrastructure, it's there. All we have to do is click of a button, and it's paid for. And we essentially get to use as much as we want. We can use as much electricity and water as we think we actually need. So if we're grateful for just basic things like that, then imagine what else can be brought into our life if we're focusing on what we want. That's just a little simple example. And people with an abundant mindset, they understand and accept that change and growth is really an integral part of their life. So they're resilient when it comes to change, and they know that there's going to be change. It's inevitable, and they don't have any fear of the unknown. So it's important to think in abundance, and having this abundance thinking, this mindset, it's a process, because you're going to have to challenge beliefs that you've had that have been ingrained in your unconscious mind for years, different beliefs, different attitudes, different values. However, if you think about the benefits of having an abundance mindset, not only will this influence the rest of your life, it'll influence all of those around you. So really, you can get rid of this scarcity thinking very, very quickly doing hypnosis or doing some different methods and techniques with NLP. So if you're interested in that, then definitely reach out to me, and let's go ahead and continue the next topic here. So this is, now that we have a good base of what each of these is, we can think about changing our thought patterns. And so there's a few practical ways that you can do this, how to go from a scarcity mindset to an abundant mindset. And one of the ones we already spoke about was gratitude. So of course I mentioned hypnosis and NLP. However, let me give you a few little things that you can do without doing a private session. So you can do something as simple as a visualization every day when you wake up, at the middle of the day, or before you go to sleep, and just focus on something you want. Bring in some nice sounds as well, and some really good feelings, and really focus on the feelings, because those feelings are going to bring abundance. Notice that they're really positive feelings, and if you need to, just turn the intensity up on them. And also notice the self-talk that you have when you're doing this visualization. Because that's the thing with visualization, is if you don't actually believe it, then you're not going to achieve it as easily. It's going to feel like work, and you're not going to be putting the right energy into it. So really focus on those feelings and make sure you're congruent, that you're aligned with those feelings. Now, one that's commonly suggested is positive affirmations. So I am abundant, or I'm a money magnet, something like this. Now, I don't really do affirmations anymore. I think if you do affirmations, that's great. I'm happy for you. Just make sure if you're going to do affirmations that you have 100% belief in what you are actually saying. Because if you don't, then the affirmations are not going to work. So I think it's much better to visualize or have gratitude, because then we're actually focusing on what we have and what we want. If we're just randomly saying words and have no belief in them, then the affirmation is not going to work. So really keep that in mind. So, something is such as waking up every day. I like to do this little visualization. If you wake up every day and think of the things that you want to do that day, I'm sure there's a few intentions that you can have towards your bigger goal. So intentions are something that we can essentially have right now. So just imagine sitting there in front of you is like a little crystal ball. So like a crystal ball into the future. And just put a picture of what you want into that crystal ball. And just work to achieve that day. So also, if we're going to visualize, we need to take action and we need to focus on what we want. So again, visualization, make sure that you're actually congruent with the good feelings, and then take action and focus on what you want. Because if you're congruent with the feelings, the good feelings, and you take action and you can focus on what you want, then you'll actually achieve what you want. If one of those is off to where you don't have good feelings and you're not taking action, or you're not actually focusing on what you want, then guess what? You're not going to get it. So there's really only 3 simple things that we need to ever do to create change in our life. And those are the 3 things that I just talked about. So anytime that I'm working with a client, if they have a scarcity mindset, the first thing I need to do is get rid of their negative emotions. So the feelings, I work on the feelings like I was just talking about. We get rid of things like anger, sadness, fear, hurt, and guilt. Most of the time, many people will have some sort of fear. Then they have that away from motivation. So they're going away from poverty instead of towards money. So if we can get rid of those negative emotions, they'll be ready to actually take action. We can also, as we get rid of those feelings, we can also get rid of their limiting decisions. So I talked about being limitless earlier, because at some point people taught us limitations. It's not our fault. It's just what happened. We were around certain people who didn't work on themselves, and they feel limited, and then they pass that on to us. So if you ever are telling yourself you're not good enough, or you don't deserve it, or you can't make enough money, or you're using those words, I don't, I can't, I'm too this, or I'm too that, then those are limiting decisions, and you need to work on those. And if you change those beliefs, then you can make much better pictures in your mind. And once you have that better picture in your mind, you take action and you focus on that good picture, focusing on what you want, and then you can easily achieve an abundant mindset. So that's the most practical way to do it. And the thing is it's pretty easy. And another way to flip our thinking, especially if we're limited by a scarcity mindset or limiting beliefs, the ones that I brought up earlier, anytime like that, something comes up, so anything similar to, I can't make enough money, I don't deserve it, I'm not good enough, anything like this, we can ask ourselves 3 questions. And this will become a habit to where we'll start thinking differently naturally after we do this for a week or 2. So the first thing you ask when a belief like that comes up, or you have a lack in your mind, you ask yourself, when did I decide that? So at some point earlier in your life, you decided that. So that's the first thing you do. Then you ask yourself, what can I learn from this? So what positive learning can you come up with for thinking this way? So now you're going to start thinking positive. And the next question, the third one is, what can I do instead? So now you're actually going to think of actions that you can do that'll help you focus on what you want. So those 3 questions to shift out of a limiting belief are, when did I decide that? What something positive that I can learn from this? And what can I do instead? So that's another really practical way that you can change your thought pattern. And guess what? How long does that actually take? Not even a minute. So if you have this habit of doing this over and over and over, guess what you're going to start thinking? You're going to start thinking in possibilities, in opportunities, in solutions. You think you're going to have choices now, where when you were limited before, you had a scarcity mindset before, then you didn't think you had choices. You had a lack of resources. So even if this isn't you thinking this way, share this with someone you know. This episode, I think, is really important. So share these little techniques with someone that you know. So the next thing we want to go into is how we can really embrace abundance in everyday life, and how we can explore how an abundant mindset can really improve. Guess what? It can improve our business, our career, our relationships, and our overall sense of well-being. So if I had to share a quick story of how this works for me, if you listen to the very first episode, you know that at one point I was going bankrupt and I had problems with drinking and gambling. So I was always focused on things that I didn't want, or things on the outside of me, instead of really working within. So I was actually focused on lack. So if you actually go bankrupt, at some point you were focusing on some sort of lack. Even if you weren't consciously aware of it, you were doing it unconsciously. So then when I got into personal development, I thought, wow, I can think differently. I can learn different things. I have different choices. I don't have to think that I don't have money or relationships or a career or anything that I want. So having this thinking and changing my thinking, this allowed me to move across the world, do what I want to do, and have a certain level of freedom. Of course, I always want to do better. So that's why I'm talking about these things. And that's why I'm continually learning and growing and being around the right people. I mean, that's another practical tip. If you really want to change your thinking to an abundance mindset, be around people who have this same mindset. So I also really like to learn a lot of things about sales. So this helps me have an abundance mindset because I'm thinking about actually selling things. So then when someone comes to buy one of my trainings, I have this strategy of having an abundant mindset, and people can sense that, and so they'll buy from me. So if I'm working with some people in sales, which I am, and I say, hey, I have this really good prospect, they're ready to jump in, and the person says to me, oh, well, I'll have to see, what they say and this and that. I mean, does that sound like abundance to you? No. However, what if I say, hey, I have this really good prospect, I can't wait for you to meet them, and the person instead says something like, oh, cool, I'll close them and I'll get referrals. Now that's an abundant mindset. That's what you need to be around. So those are a few different examples of how you can make a shift in your life as well. Because if you're around people that are thinking like this, then the energy, you're going to want to have it. You're going to want to feel more of it. You're going to want to see more abundance. It's going to have that really good sound. It's going to be like music to your ears every time you notice abundance. So that's really one of the main tips as well of how you can maintain an abundant mindset, is be around people who think like this as well. And a good way to think about that too is, even if you're just starting to learn all these things, it's okay to be around people that are further along in their journey and know more than you. Because guess what? That's going to bring more opportunities for learning. So I don't want to be the smartest person in the room. I want to be around people who are thinking bigger than me, who have better thinking or different thinking, or thinking that I've never heard before. Because if I'm not continually around that type of energy, then guess what? You could fall back into a more scarcity mindset, thinking like, oh, I'm doing just enough and it feels good. However, if you're actually around people thinking big, you're going to think, wow, how can I get those things? What are they doing? This really creates a ripple effect and a really positive effect on you and even those around you. So because you're around those people, more people will want to be around you as well. And that's what I was saying with sales. If I'm selling to someone and they can tell like, wow, this person has a really good attitude, they have an abundant mindset, like I want to work with them because I want to have that energy too. Because I know people who've bought programs, coaching, trainings, things like that, just because they wanted to be around that type of energy. Of course, they wanted to work on their problems. However, they hire the coach or the trainer, and that could be myself included, just based off the energy, that abundance that they felt. So be around people that are going to help you grow and learn. And if you need to invest in yourself to be around those people, then maybe that's something you need to do. I have a whole other episode about investing in yourself, so go ahead and check that out as well. So if we kind of wrap this up, our mindset, so if we're thinking in scarcity or abundance, guess what? This significantly impacts our thoughts, our feelings, and our actions. Remember, if we have a good feeling and we take action, then it's easy to focus on what we want and we can bring what we want into our reality. So if we can really embrace an abundant mindset, this will shift us into a way of getting results and feeling empowered. We can take our personal power back and essentially we can transform our lives. And if we want to, the lives of many people around us. So thanks for listening. I hope this is a motivating episode for you to, be around abundant people. And if you think anyone needs this, definitely share it with your friends. Wherever you're listening, go ahead and leave a 5-star and a review. I'd really appreciate your feedback. And if you want to connect with me, go ahead and connect with me on my website, athensnlp.com. Send me an email, alex@athensnlp.com. Or you can DM me on Instagram at alexmorganhypnosis. And I'd love to hear what you want to do to change your thinking more towards abundance. So thanks so much for listening.